Hey guys, Rex here. I finally got some results in on the KL box reticle. I'll share those with you guys. A lot of people are curious on what the reticle's tuned for, like what is it best on, because the instructions say it's for 556 or 762. How the heck does that work, Rex? We're going to do a full series on DMR and also how to tune ballistic drop compensating reticles, BDC reticles, because I think that's an area of needed education, because I see a lot of guys like online confused, like, it's not matched up right now. Doesn't matter what company, Vortex, Primary Arms, US Optics, Leupold, Burris, whatever, Shepherd, like whatever, like guys do not understand that the ballistic trajectory is an ever-moving parabola based on environmental factors and muzzle velocity variation. And so the reality of measure this, guys, you see what I'm doing? This is a parabola in time, changing every second of the day. And when you change your lot of ammo, now it's changing up here. When you change your lot of ammo again, now it's changing this way. A ballistic parabola, which is the shape, right, of your trajectory, is changing as the temperature goes up and down from atmospheric density variations. Like I have in my AO here, when I wrote the number down for you guys, I have a decent amount of variance, 0.018 pounds per cubic foot of variance in my AO. Okay, and that's from 100 degrees to like -20. Okay, also your velocity will change. My velocity variance, where I'm at up here in North Dakota, is like my muzzle velocity. So like if I get a perfectly tuned reticle for a given velocity, that's for standard conditions. But as it's the morning, the evening, the bright part of the day where it's hot, as the rifle heats up, as the ammo heats up in my pocket, I take it off the dashboard of the car, I move it to my chest rig, it's off the chest rig, it's in the weapon, it's hanging down from a sling. The ammunition is changing temperature. Your velocity will often change more than 100 feet per second just from temperature-induced muzzle velocity variation. So how do you do that? Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I will do a series on DMR. I think I might release part of that, at least a teaser here on YouTube, and then maybe we'll put the rest on Patreon. But I want to introduce the concepts. Some of these are going to be very helpful because I see a lot of people struggling with understanding that. And they're arguing like, I think this is off. Like, it's off all the time. It's a cone of fire on a flexing parabola based on all the stuff. So the artwork of the magic that the designers have to do is anticipate how to get that cone of fire on a flexing parabola to intersect most people's workspace with most people's equipment. Okay, so we're going to get into it. Before I get started, I'm going to be really busy next week with home stuff, so I'm not going to be able to forget. I'm going to forget to tell you. Last time I talked to the guys at who have the EP-8, the Arken, they're actually raising prices. What's that holiday you guys do where you beat the crap out of each other for Tickle Me Elmo? And we're like, dudes are just like like 40-year-old moms are just punching each other in the face to get a TV at Target. Remember that thing that you guys do, that holiday? They're actually raising prices. So like, they have to. People have asked, like, Rex, that seems cheap. There's got to be something wrong with it. Yeah, the price is wrong, but that's like marketing. They're trying to get it out there. And they're trying to prove that it works so that enough people can see it. And then they have to adjust their price to reality. It's got to happen at some point, right? That's very true with any kind of outfit that's trying to get his name out there and his reputation. Like, this stuff works as good as the $2,000 stuff, but it's really cheap. Well, it's not going to be cheap forever, okay? So they are starting to raise their prices on Black Friday. If you want one, grab it before then, okay? I don't know how much it's going up. I have no idea. But they just mentioned that. You might want to let them know. Because if you're waiting for the Tickle Me Elmo sale to punch some other dude for an EP-8 Arken, it's not going to help you. And it'd be better to grab it now. So if you use code REX, it matches any of the best deals online. So that I asked them, just for the REX code, make sure that it is going to match the best online deal. That way, it saves you the trouble of having to scrounge for the best deal. Okay, so whatever the best online deal is, the REX code, if you use that, you type that in there, it'll give you a really good discount. In some cases, it's like a significant amount, okay? So the EP-8 I have on my Zion 15 by IWI, okay? I got 77 grain razor cores in here. And it's just, I mean, that's like one of the ammo I've been using that's one of the loads I've been preferring for long range for a while. And I put this EP-8 on here using their rigid mount. This is their I think this is their streamlined lightweight configuration rigid mount. And it's really nice. It's like, it should be a lot more expensive than it is. But I had it zeroed, and strangely, dig this. I put it on this IWI, Zion with a Z. See, now listen for the top secret codes, guys. And then I just mechanically zeroed the scope. Like, I didn't have to adjust this. I just like made sure it was like in the center of its adjustment range. And then I shot it, and it was exactly, perfectly on target with the mount and with the EP-8. Exactly zeroed. I didn't have to slip the scales or anything. It was just in like left and right, up and down. I very rarely see that. This is maybe the second time in my life I've seen that. That happened one other time on an old Mauser from my Uncle Charlie or something. I can't remember, right? Like, it was just like mechanically perfectly zeroed. Like, somebody did a good job on their machining or their gunsmithing there, right? One of my uncles used to build rifles. Worked out perfect. So for whatever that story's worth, pretty cool. So this is on my Zion 15. This is intended by its configuration. Got the B5 back here, right? And yeah, I write down my information on there so that I don't lose it, right? You want the facts inscribed into your hearts and minds. If you ever come to a Rex defense class, there's a bug in here. If you ever come to a Rex defense class, you will have to memorize your dope. Otherwise, you can do push-ups if you get it wrong, see? And then this is a 16-inch barrel, okay? So 16-inch barrel, configuration intended for DMR. And it was perfectly, exactly zeroed on my 100-yard target. Now, they recommend to do a 50, 200 zero, but I do 100, and I wanted to see where it would end up. And it just happened to work out good. So, to make a long story short, and I won't give you the full science lesson now, I'll just give you a hint at it and how it works, and then we'll do a series on how to do this that will apply to any BDC reticle, really, okay? But like what you need to know on the EP-8 KL box reticle, the KL box is the kill box reticle developed by Mike from SEAL Team 1. He was a sniper on SEAL Team 1. It has a bracket system where you frame and fire based on the torso and shoulder width. It's somewhat of a different design you might be used to. It's meant to engage a variety of different targets at different angles, because sometimes guys are at like different angles, you know what I mean? And so that was the design deal there that they're doing. Like, there's some pretty good demos they have that explain how it works and how it can be more flexible in some ways. So whenever we get to that part, maybe we'll show you that. But just to talk about how the BDC is tuned, what loads does it line up to? So as best I can tell, I put this on the board, I charted it out, I looked up the numbers, I measured the numbers to verify, then I ran the ballistics, and I checked with my loads, and I got the chronograph information, the whole 9 yards, figured it out for you, and I can tell you in a very general sense, okay, or in a very specific sense, this matches perfectly this rifle, which is weird, okay? 77 grain razor core with a 16-inch barrel and 1,500 feet elevation on a hot day is perfect, exactly on. Now on a cold day like today, it's like, let me read it. I have to go 3 clicks to adjust for a cold day. So then I just like go like this, right? If I'm doing a high precision shot, I go 3 clicks. And it's exactly on at 800, which is very, very good. But on a hot day, it's exactly on, okay? Now, the nature of a flexing parabola is that cone of fire changes all through the time. Your load changes, something changes the BC, something changes with the internal ballistics of the rifle, and it's always a cone of fire that is flexing based on the ammunition variation, muzzle velocity variation from the temperature, air density, etc. I mean, I have a decent amount of flex up here in my atmosphere, like I said earlier. And so when I did the M855, this is very well configured with M855. However, you have to use the hotter Federal stuff. So if you're running Federal M855, it'll work very good. Or if you are more, it seems like the reticle's catering more towards the DMR configured rifle. So if you have 16 or 20 inch barrels, it'll work very well, very, very well with your M193 and your M855, no matter what the brand. Like it's going to be very, very close at standard altitudes, like intercontinental interior, right? At sea level, the nature of any of these reticles is at sea level, you're usually going to be low because it's higher air density, right? Because you're lower, there's more air density. As you gain altitude, the air is more thin. So then it's sometimes most of these reticles are designed for continental interior environments, and then you'll be more on. And then on a hot day, it's the atmosphere is more thin. So you have to kind of define, this is on any user. You have to define your workspace, okay? How far am I going to shoot? What altitude am I at? What ammo am I using? And once you define that, then you need to find out how to tune your zero, okay? And so what you have here is if you wanted the hypothetical non-existent underground climate-controlled shooting range like Brunig, except like way bigger. Brunig in Switzerland's like an underground giant cave they carved out of the tunnels, right? And granite. And it's like exactly 68 degrees in there all the time or whatever it is. I've been to Brunig and shot there. It's where the Olympic guys shoot in Switzerland. If you're there, then you could tune a reticle for a load and it'd be perfect all the time. But if you exit the tunnel, and it's like morning and daytime, and if you wear your ammo in your chest rig and then you move it out and then your ammo changes temperature, it's going to change your trajectory. You have to know this. And it baffles my mind that, well, the young kids nowadays, they don't know that. They just don't. They just like, that's not on. I'm like, hold on, Private Snuffy. Wait a minute. Look at math. Look at science. It's a projectile flying through an atmosphere of varying density and varying speed. But in a general sense, the reticle is most perfectly tuned for high efficiency bullets like Razor cores or 77 grain or M855. They're a little more higher ballistic coefficient on the faster edge, or rifles using conventional ammo with longer barrels. So like, for example, an M16A2 or an A4 or like a DMR configuration from the old days, the 20-inch AR configurations, right? Do you remember those? Like the M16A4, do you guys remember those? There's a million different terms. Each branch has its terminology to define that, right? Like your classic DMR setups, running M855, which a lot of those guys are running other ammo, right? But like that configuration is perfect at 2,000 feet. Perfect under standard atmosphere and pressure, okay, at 2,000 feet with M855 Federal. Now, if you change lots, if you change brands, it's gonna, again, that parabola is continuously flexing, and as it gets evening, it'll be off, and it's morning, when it's cold, it'll be a little bit off. But under standard atmosphere and pressure, if you just got to know, 20-inch barrel, M855, 2,000 feet, exactly on. Or 16-inch barrel, Razor core, 77 grain, 1,500 feet, exactly on a warm day, okay? And a little bit like in the wintertime, it's a little bit cold, right? So it'll be changing atmospheric density. It's also, if you're running 55, it'll work fine. You just cinch up your workspace. And with any load, any ammo, because there is no perfect zero on a BDC reticle because your atmosphere is flexing and changing, man. Your parabola, due to all your changes, is flexing and changing continuously. You have to define your workspace, your cone of fire. And so the instructions that they wrote, I'll just translate that for you. So if you got 556, if you got 762, those parabolas are very close enough to intersect. They pushed it on the 556 loads to be higher efficiency bullets going a little bit fast, like on the, not faster than normal, but just like not your slow ammo. Some, and I'm not going to talk smack right now, but like some of the ammo is like way slower. It's like 150 feet per second slower than all the rest, right? There's certain brands like that I even like that, man, it's slow. It's like for long range, it makes a difference, right? So if you're running full speed ammo in a barrel at least 16 inches long, it's tuned for that. So for a classic DMR deal, this wouldn't be as effective like on a short barrel deal, right? Or a pistol, it's not, you'd be better off with something else, right? But on a DMR configured rifle is what it's zeroed for. DMR rifles with DMR ammo, okay? Something high efficiency. If you are running 55 M193, you can make it work. You just cinch up your workspace. So how does that work? You take your rifle, Step one, you zero it. Just zero it like you do it. That means you turn your dials till you're on. I didn't have to turn my dials. It was perfectly on, right? And then you slip your scales to zero, whatever you need to do, and just zero it. Once it's zeroed, now you just go to a medium range target, like 600 yards is a good spot because this reticle goes from 0 to 800. And you pick your 600 yard target or your 800 yard target. If the reticle's perfectly tuned to your deal, you can get away with the 800 yard verification, okay? And basically you just, whatever atmospheric variation or, you define your standard conditions. You go out on a normal day in your workspace of when you intend to use the rifle. So you go out in the weather that you would use the rifle in. Like if you're only shooting when it's 60 degrees, then go out when it's 60. If you're going to use this for varmint hunting when it's like 40 degrees, then go out when it's 40 and true your zero. You go to range, you verify it's at exactly 500 yards, and then you tune to the 500 yard mark and then slip your scales to zero. Or you go to 600. So that means you're shooting at the 600 yard target, right? You shoot at it and you get it hitting exactly in the center of the 600 yard target. Then you take your scales, your little numbers here. See, there's numbers on the scope. You get that number and you dial it until it's hitting on. So you're using the mark in the reticle at 600 to hit perfectly on the 600. Once that happens, stop everything. Wherever this is dialed, doesn't matter. Loosen this screw. This cap will then slip past the click marks and you slip your scales to zero. And then you put this back on. Now you are trued for that ammo in this rifle for your standard conditions. You don't really have to do any math if you do it that way. That's the field way to do it. That's how Glomar would do it. That's how Private Snuffy would do it. That's how I do it. Because reality is king. Like the math is a little more difficult. Like if you don't have a range like that, then what are you worried about really? But like, and then what you do to see what your 100 yard zero is going to be, you have to find out. So you go ahead and you do your thing at 600, you get a shoot for 600, you ship to, so your BDC mark matches up on the 600 yard target. Now you go out to 800, you'll notice you're very close. It's going to be a little bit off because that cone of fire flexes. And at close range, it's going to be so indiscernibly off in a small amount, you're probably not going to notice. Most shooters in field conditions firing from field positions will not even discern a problem. If you're a really, really, really meticulous precision shooter, you will see that it maybe goes like a small amount. And I'll show pictures for you here in a minute explaining how to cinch up the workspace. Here's what it looks like ballistically, real quick. The green line is showing you perfect standard atmosphere normalcy. And then there's your flex throughout the day, hot and cold, slow and fast, okay, on your ammo. And so what you have to do is cinch up your workspace at a closer distance, and it will minimize and shrink the delta variance at all your close range stuff. So you have to pick, if you're going to shoot closer in most of the time, guys, then zero at like 500 or 600 or 400, okay? True it there. If you're going to be mostly long range, then true it maybe at 800. Okay, so you have to define your workspace. You have to see what you're trying to accomplish, and then you cinch up the slop in the cone of fire due to the atmospheric shift. So you cinch that up to reality, right? Which is confirming and truing your zero at range in a real life test. Okay. And then you bring it in back to what if you zeroed it, if you like 100 yards, you want to know where it's hitting now, you just shoot at the target. And then you aim straight at the target. And then if it's like 1.5 inches high, you write that number down. You say, okay, 1.5 inches high at 100 yards to be exactly right on with the BDC reticle. Done. Or if you zero at 36 yards, then shoot at 36 yards and then look at how high or low it was or whatever it is. And you write down that number, 0 at 36 yards, whatever inches in this direction to be on with the BDC. That's how you true a BDC reticle. That's how it's been done forever. It's how we train to do it with every brand. Like, doesn't matter the brand. It's a concept. It's how stuff works. And unless your brand of scope can freeze the atmosphere and physics in place magically, you have to do something similar to that to make it work perfectly for your workspace, okay? Now, if a reticle was designed for your workspace, that makes it a little easier. but there's still atmospheric variance. Even doesn't, I mean, like, you know how it is in the high desert. When it gets dark out, it gets really cold. And then when it gets warm out, it gets really hot. It's the same thing in North Dakota. It is really cold in certain parts of the year and really hot in other parts of the year. I go up to 110 or 115 degrees in the summer, down to negative 40, negative 50. And North Dakota has a huge variance, right? So I define my workspace as in between 100. I'm not going out past 100 yards or 100 degrees. And, you know, I'm not going out below 20 if I can help it. I'm going to be cozy in my cave at that point, right? So my workspace is within there, and then you just do it. Now, you can do this on a ballistic table. I can show you how to do that in a series. You just figure out your ballistic arch and kind of do the same thing, right? So it's a simple process to true your BDC if you have the range to do it. If you don't, then why are you worried? But if you're anal, the only true way to do it is to do it in the field. But you can do it with a ballistic computer. They have instructions. Basically, you subtract the difference and then do that dialing thing here after you get zeroed on a 50 or 200 yard zero, right? The 50, 200, or I did 100 yard. Like, you just figure, you put it into a ballistic calculator, and then you see what your delta is from what the reticle is, right? And they have that information in the instructions, exactly where it's at. And then you just subtract that from here, a couple clicks, and then set it. So you're kind of, but then you have to think, right? And then you have to like, which way do I go, man? So it's not hard. The reticle would be very good for 7.62 as well, like in your normal configuration, like M80 type ammo, stuff like that. 150 grainers is really good. But again, you just cinch up your workspace, and that all changes with load. There's a huge difference between Magtech and Federal, and 168 grainers and 150 grainers. M80 Hertenberger versus M80 South African. Totally, completely different animals. Completely different animals. You have to cinch it up on your workspace one way or the other, okay? And so any BDC reticle will have a given parabola shape that will intersect kind of their target audience and target equipment, right? So this one is suited for a DMR configured 5.56 or a normal configured battle rifle in 7.62, right in there. That's the sweet spot. It'll work for basically 5.56 or 7.62 or anything in that area. It's just a parabola, okay? And you have to tune it and cinch up that workspace. Look at the ballistic curve. The pictures hopefully explain a little better for you. But that's kind of how it works. And I'll do a tutorial on that later. So for whatever it's worth, guys, it worked out good for me. I don't know if it'll work out good for you exactly. But, you know, you might have to, like, find a different lot of ammo. If you're anal and if you notice you're missing because of that, I'll buy you a Daniel Webster cigar. I guarantee your miss is not going to be that. It's going to be you. It's going to be you not holding the rifle steady or something, right? That's the reality. Like, we can go out in the field and I'll watch you shoot and I'll be like, you're like, it's not the reticle, it's you, right? And if you tune your reticle perfectly, it will hit the whole time, okay? It'll just be a tiny bit high or a tiny bit low based on your atmosphere for the day and your load and all that stuff, right? And where you cinched up your workspace. These are all tools. The military does use BDC reticles all the time. If you want precision capabilities, that's where the EP-8 is really cool, is these dials right here. If I want to do a custom fire mission, I look at my number here. If I need something to be really, really precise, like I look at my number and then I dial it in. Then I'm exactly on. Then I can do a firing solution on a ballistic computer, my PDA, whatever the hell I'm using, a Kestrel. I can look at the exact custom firing solution. I can dial it in like it was a precision long, like LPO, like or a VPO, like a variable precision optic, right? So like I can dial it in perfectly like a target turret. Even though it's low profile, the tracking was perfect in the tests, which is very rare on an LPVO. You don't see that kind of tracking, but that's like their shtick. They want to make sure they have rugged precision with their tracking. So I can do this. I can do the high precision stuff with this by dialing it in. And it just so happens that the BDC lines up with my high precision on this using the 77. So whatever yours is, you'll have to figure that out. And then you just true your reticle. And then you write down the numbers a little bit. And then you write all your stuff here and here and here. And then you're good. All right. So if you wanted one of those things, here they're going up in price. Grab one while you can. Use the Rex code below. Thank you for watching, and we will maybe start working on a DMR program. Might be fun to do, doing demos with different equipment, different reticles, different systems, showing you how to use different stuff in the field. Because, man, I see people tripping over their feet all the time on that, and it's just like, oh, man, I wish I was there to help them, right? Yes, we did classes on that a number of years ago. It's not hard. It's just if you just got to kind of see how it works, and once you see how it works, it's like, oh, well, wish I would have known that earlier, right? So the next time you see someone confused on how to tune a ballistic drop compensating reticle, just share the video with them, or maybe you can help them out now. You can explain, hey, man, the parabola is continuously changing. Like, if you didn't do the math or true your reticle at range, then that's why you're off. You can't yell at Burris or Leupold or Arken or PA or anybody for that. Like, you have to either do the math or do the test, and then you have to adjust it because the atmosphere changes, right? So help the young ones understand. There's a lot of young firebrands out there yelling at stuff on the computer. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And maybe you can be that big brother that provides a little bit of sanity to the conversation. And with that, I bid you a fair weekend. May the force be with you. Rex out.